Hi again, students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian. I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here in Western Canada. I hope that all of you are having a great start to your week, and I hope you're staying healthy, strong, productive, happy. Welcome, Phuong. Welcome, Sylviana. Nice to see your members back in this class. And welcome, Evalor, Ridham, Nat, Chayani. Good to see our subscribers. This is a subscribers chat class, which means that subscribers and members can join the chat. If you can't join the chat, just subscribe to the channel and then you'll be golden. It's a good idea to subscribe to our channel. We've got a lot of IELTS learning for you throughout the week, and we are world leaders when it comes to IELTS exam preparation. I'm a certified British Council agent. I have taken the IELTS exam and I've worked with IELTS for the past 20 years. I graduated from the University of Victoria with a degree in psychology, so I love to understand the way that we as humans think, grow, and develop, and I look at the IELTS exam from the perspective of not only as a teacher, but also as a psychologist. All right, students, this is a listening class, listening part 1 and part 2. The topic of part 1, you'll notice, will be about an election, and then part 2 will be a company meeting regarding the sales and growth of products. Okay. The lesson is presented to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS. Visit us there. For general IELTS, visit us at gieltshelp.com. Manjeet is asking, what's my prediction for the 14th of January? My prediction is be ready for anything. You cannot predict the topics, so focus on strategy. That's what's important. Okay. All right. As far as topics go, they can choose from more topics than combinations of winning lottery tickets. So think about that. All right. Okay. Students, the websites, we're going to use this one today. This is our academic IELTS website here with the blue background. We've got all of the materials, videos here. Click that big red button to join the premium IELTS package that's just above my head there. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access, and you get all of our practice exams, videos, and much, much more. We use these materials as basically the textbook, so the website is the course material. Okay, general IELTS, same idea. Click that red button, and then you can use the code WRITE9. We've got a really good writing video that we just released on the channel. It's very popular. Apply that code, you get a 10% discount. The price is different in different countries depending on your economy, so check it out. And again, we're British Council partners, IDP affiliates, IELTS test registration centers. You can actually register for your IELTS through the website if you see the red button, register for IELTS in your student account. All right, everybody. So, yeah, you can definitely get some apps from us as well. The apps are Academic IELTS Help and General IELTS Help. The apps will link to the websites. Instagram is IELTS_AE Help for academic and GIELTS Help for general. So even more places for you to get materials from us. You can, by using our materials, you get the world's most advanced online IELTS course. We develop materials faster than just about anybody else. And if you have questions, you can send me an email to adrian@aehelp.com or admin@aehelp.com. We like questions. We like helping students. So get in touch with us. You can order our books from Amazon for your practice exams. Also search for AE Helps Academic IELTS or GE Helps General IELTS. And we've got regular live classes, so subscribe to the channel. Right now we've got this listening class, and tomorrow we're going to have speaking part 2 and speaking part 3. Also, we've got this new task 2 video that you can watch whenever you'd like. It's very popular. It's got over 60,000 views in just a few days, so check that out. It's a good one. It's got a lot of important to know information about the IELTS exam and the writing. And now we get into listening strategies. The first listening strategy, everybody, is listen. No, I'm kidding. Of course, you're there to listen. Make sure that you're focused from the very start, okay? Focus from the very beginning and review the topic of each part during the instruction time. Okay, the listening is about 50 minutes long. Each part is about 10 minutes long. You have to answer while you listen, so you have to be really careful. If you miss an answer, don't freak out. You still might be able to answer it later, okay? So sometimes answers repeat themselves, and sometimes you realize that the answer is very logical. So even if you missed it, you can maybe answer it later, but if you panic, then you'll miss more answers, okay? So focus and listen, and go question by question. Students, I'm going to play the listening audio from our website. What I want you to do is listen, answer, save your answers, not in the chat. We can share them after we do the listening. Don't put them in the chat because it confuses other people. We'll go through them after with strategy. So today we're looking at our 6th exam. So this is test number 6 from our 2nd exam book. Again, this exam book is in our premium package on the website. And we're looking at section 1, section 2, which is also called part 1, part 2 these days. Keep in mind, students, that any materials that you're looking at which are after, or any exams, I should say, which are after 2020 will not have the example, okay? So in your real exam, do not expect the example. There won't be an example, right? So it's that much less for the warm-up part of the test. All right, so we're going to use this exam. In the real exam, you only see the questions once the listening audio starts. Once it starts, it does not stop. It goes for 40 minutes straight. You can look at questions in other parts at any time. If the invigilator says you can't, listen to them, but then after your test, you can go and talk to the office and say, hey, they didn't let me look at the other questions. That's not fair. I should be allowed. There's nothing in the instructions that says I can't look at the part 2, part 3 during the instructions. And during the computer-based exam, that's very easy to do because all you have to do is just click on those parts, okay? So whether you're the paper-based or the computer-based, you should be allowed to look at part 2, 3, 4 during the instruction time. All right, we know that from IELTS, from the people who make IELTS and from the people who administer IELTS. If somebody says you can't, they weren't trained properly. Okay, but don't argue with them during the exam, okay? It is what it is, right? Okay, so yes, you can see that we've got all the parts. This outline is basically like the paper-based outline. You can check out the computer-based version in your My Student account, okay? In your premium package again. So I'm going to use my headset. When you do the computer-based test, you have a headset. Please do keep both headphones on you in the real test. I keep one ear out just so I can hear what's going on with the rest of all of the setup here. This here, when you have our materials, you'll notice that it tells you that you're looking at CD6 track 1, which makes sense because it's the 6th test and it's section 1. So we hop over to aehelp.com or glshelp.com. Both of them will have the same listening. Listening sections are the same. I jump into my student account. And then I hop into my IELTS audio CDs. I've got lots of them here. I'm going down to CD6, track 1. Get ready to listen. Have a pencil, paper ready, or have a document open on your phone or your notepad or something on your computer. And again, don't put the answers in the chat. We'll go over them after. The first strategy you'll notice that I will use once this starts is I will look at the topics of each of the sections or parts, and then I will focus on the first few questions that should be fairly easy. I shouldn't have to really read them 2 or 3 times. I just once skimmed over is fine. You'll see what I mean. If I'm going a bit fast, don't worry, you'll catch up. Okay, everybody, here we go with CD 6, track 1, or better said, exam 6, section 1. Listen carefully and answer the questions. We'll go through them together after with strategy. Here we go.
This recording is copyrighted by 2 Think One Solutions Inc. and World ESL Tutors. You will hear several different recordings, and you will answer questions on what you hear. There will be time given to read the instructions and questions, and you will be given a chance to check your work. The recordings will be played only once. The test is made up of 4 sections. At the end of the test, you will have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. Now turn to section 1. Listening section 1. You will hear a conversation between a man and a woman concerning the requirements of running for municipal office. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. You will see that there is an example. This time only, the conversation relating to this question will be played.
Good morning. You've reached the Information Office for Municipal Affairs. This is Florence speaking.
Good morning, Florence. My name is Walter, and I'd like some information on running for municipal office in the upcoming election.
You're in the right place. The first piece of information I'll need from you is the specific office you'd like to run for.
Town councillor, I'd imagine.
The man says he would like to run for town councillor, so this has been indicated for you. Now we begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Good morning. You've reached the Information Office for Municipal Affairs. This is Florence speaking.
Good morning, Florence. My name is Walter, and I'd like some information on running for municipal office in the upcoming election.
You're in the right place. The first piece of information I'll need from you is the specific office you'd like to run for.
Town councillor, I'd imagine.
Great. I need some information from you in order to get you on the ballot this September. Are you ready to get started?
Yes, I'm ready.
This should only take a few minutes. OK then, let's start with your surname, Walter.
Colchester. Colchester.
And Walter is spelt in the regular fashion?
Yes, Walter.
OK, next I need your date of birth.
I was born the 11th of December, 1979.
The 11th of December 1979 makes you 36 years old at the time of the September elections. Is this correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Great. I'll need your national insurance number.
My national insurance number is WC 285-698-33.
WC 285-698-33.
That's right.
Great. And the last pieces of information I need from you are your current address and phone number.
I live at 23 Shaftesbury Lane, Plymouth, and you can reach me on 01752 667 835.
Wonderful. Next, I'll give you some information on running for municipal office.
You now have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen to the rest of the interview and answer questions 6 to 10.
First of all, you should know that you are one of 15 candidates so far that have registered for the 4 town councillor positions. Since the deadline for registration is in a week, I do not anticipate this number increasing by more than a candidate or 2. Second, please know that there are 3 all-candidate debates, of which you must attend 2 in order to qualify for office.
I have to participate in debates.
Yes, that's right. They are on the 14th and 28th of August, and the final one is held on the 4th of September. They'll be held at the local community hall on Ashford Street. Each one begins at 6 o'clock in the evening.
That sounds fine. Is there anything else I need to know?
Yes, there is. Do you plan on spending money on your campaign? This could be on adverts in newspapers, promotional signage, or other advertising.
Well, I was planning on taking an ad out in the local paper, yes.
Not a problem, but please keep in mind that there is a strict £2,000 limit on campaign spending for town councillors. All expenses must be reported to this office. Overspending will result in disqualification.
I don't think that should be a problem.
Oh, and one more thing, Mr. Colchester. There is a £50 registration fee for each candidate for town councillor. You may pay this fee over the phone by credit card, with a cheque in the post, or in person with cash, credit or debit. How would you like to pay?
I live right by the office, so I'll drop by this afternoon to pay in person.
My assistant will take care of that for you. I think that is all I need from my end. Do you have any questions?
I don't think so. Thanks for your help.
You're welcome, and good luck.
That is the end of section 1. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
Okay, students, so again, I'm just stopping the audio at ahelp.com here. And for all of you taking the IELTS exam, if you see this red button, it means that IELTS is available to register for the online at-home version in your region, unless you're using a VPN. Be very careful with that. If you're in India and you're using a VPN through Australia, don't click that button because you might not be able to register and do that test. So careful. But if you see this button, you should be able to. Okay. All right, everybody. So I'm just pausing the audio so that we can look at all of the strategies. You saw me doing the strategies with the annotations. So you saw me using the pink marker to just kind of show you how my brain is looking at the information and what I'm doing. So let's go through that a little bit first. All right. So you notice that my first strategy was really just to look at all of the topics for part 1, part 2, part 3. So obviously part 1 is about this man who's registering to go for an election for town councillor. And then the second part starts with question 11. It says, who pays the salaries of workers? Okay, so we've got a group of workers here where it's some kind of a managerial or management type meeting maybe. And then this table gives us a lot more help with the topic. We've got sales, downloads, current year, change from previous year. So clearly this is some kind of audio with the internal workings of a company. Okay. So I get this idea in my head before I get to part 2, because part 2 is going to be a lot more challenging than part 1. Okay. Part 1 is much easier than part 2, part 3, part 4. So here I'm like, okay, companies talk about sales, profits, losses, projects, hiring, firing people. So all of these parts of, working for a company, right? Kushal, the answers are more or less in the order, but I'm going to show you something about that. So Kushal is asking me, are the answers random or in the order? They're more or less in the order of the exam, except, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just a second, okay? All right, so then I go to part 3. Part 3, I noticed that, okay, it says, how many books has the guest written? So it's something about a book. Here it says, what description does the guest give the book thesis? So again, we've got the book, we've got the guest, and then a little bit more down, I noticed that, there's these interesting words like intention theory or theory. So, and even further down, we've got this table. Really look at the tables, okay, when you're kind of foreshadowing or forecasting what's on your listening. And especially look at the table headings, okay? So they're very important. So here we have situation, and then we have intention theory and subjective meaning theory. So I can tell that this is something about an author, a book, and some theories. Okay, so part 2 is book, author, theories. So then I keep going down and I get to section 4, and section 4 will focus on one topic in detail. Okay, and here we've got roads. So I can figure out that this one is about roads. Okay. So part 1, going for town council. Part 2, some kind of a meeting at a company. Part 3, something about a book with some theories. Part 4, some specific information about roads. All right. Okay, students, so that's what we're looking at. Now, I went back to part 1, and notice how for part 1, part 2, part 3, you have a little bit of a break between the questions. So part 1, you get a little bit of a break at the end of 5. So you get a few more seconds to look at the questions 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Which is fine. Now, somebody was asking me, like, do the answers or do the questions come in the order of the test? Yes and no. So mostly yes. But when you have a question type like this, students, where it's a form completion, so here you have to complete the form, always pay close attention to the instructions. It will usually say 1 word or no more than 2 words. It's usually 1 to 2 words, okay? Then we have seen this in several IELTS exams where the information in the form is kind of like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like this, right? But then when you hear the audio, they don't actually give you these answers in this order. So in this case, it's true. In this case, they tell you the name first, and then they tell you the date of birth, and then I think so it goes like this. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Okay, that's the actual order of information. Did everybody catch that? So they're basically dealing with one topic, and the information is very dense, and there's no rule. The IELTS doesn't say we're going to tell you number 1 first, number 2. It often is like that, but not always. So be really careful, okay? So it's definitely by grouping. They're not going to give you an answer for, question 9 and then jump back to question 1. That's not going to happen, okay? But within this form, they can jump around a little bit, okay? And that can happen sometimes, all right? Okay, everybody clear on that? That's important. That was a good question. It's an important question, okay? So that can happen within forms or within table completions, okay? Akira says, what is the worst tip for listening? I'll talk about that a little bit. Okay, Akira, that's a good question. Before we get into the answers, and so just to kind of give you the summary of the answers here. Okay, so remember that answers to questions may be random within one question set. In part 1 especially. Usually not, but it can be, okay? And then Akira says, what's some bad advice? What is bad advice for listening? Okay, I'll give you a couple that comes to mind right off the bat, all right? Try to focus on keywords. And listen only for these words. Okay? It's good to focus on some keywords, but don't just focus on those words, okay? So the reason why I say that, so the listen only for these words, okay, that's the key part here of the bad advice, is this doesn't work because many times they paraphrase the words of the questions, okay? So many times, or often, very often, words are paraphrased in the audio. So, for example, in the questions, you might see the word address, and then in the audio, you might hear the person say something like, I live at, okay? Which is obviously the address, but they're not going to say my address is. So if you're sitting there in the IELTS exam and you're like, okay, I'm going to circle this word and I'm going to listen for address, listen for address, listen for address, listen for address. That is the end of the listening section. You will now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the... But I didn't hear the word address. And I'm just on question 2. What happened? Well, nobody said address. Somebody said I live at, or my residence is, or send the envelope to, right? So my music says that was me. Oh boy, you made me laugh. Yeah, no, so you got to be careful with that, okay? So trying to listen for a specific word is really dangerous. You might just never hear it, all right? Okay. All right, so careful with that. Another bad idea, okay, is circling and underlining words. Okay, a lot of students do this. Okay, but don't do this in the real exam. When you're practicing at home, yes, it's useful for study, but it's not useful for the real test, okay? So circling or underlining words during the real or official exam is a bad idea. It's good to do for study at home because that's different, right? But not in the real test. Because it is distracting and takes time. Okay? So you can visually think. So like in the real exam, when you have the test and you're like, okay, I'm listening for this, then you can visually kind of circle address. Address is a key concept. So it's not a key word that I'm looking for, but it's a key concept that I'm listening for. Like I live here, I reside here. Okay, send your envelopes here. So I'm listening for the concept, not the word per se, but I don't circle it. All right. And again, what happens to people is they get all, of course, in the paper-based exam, because in the computer-based exam, you can't do this. So there's no highlight function or there's no circle function. And definitely, I don't recommend taking your pen and like scratching the screen. That would be really bad. The invigilator would probably be like, excuse me, sir, but you'll have to pay for that computer monitor. So yeah, don't do that. So in the real exam, just visually identify, okay, that's an important word, all right? In the paper-based exam, don't circle, don't underline, because then what's going to happen is you're going to be like, all right, I'm listening for the name, I'm listening for the address, I'm listening to, and meanwhile, they're like, my name is Walter Colchester, spelt, and you're like, phone number and national insurance number, and then, okay, Plymouth, Shaftesbury Lane, and they're like, and that is the end of the IELTS exam. So again, right, it's like, use your time wisely, okay? All right, so those are some don'ts. Akira, that was a long answer, but yeah, don't underline words, okay? It's a waste of time, and sometimes people are underlining things that are not even important. They're like, application form. Yeah, it's an application form. And when people are nervous, they tend to do that. They underline and circle unnecessarily. So don't do it, okay? Don't do it. Just use your eyes. Okay, so let's go through the answers together, and I'll give you some more strategies as we move along. So number 1, everybody, what was the answer? I gave it to you. His name was Walter Colchester. He spells it, okay? Pay really careful attention to the spelling. Catch it the first time you hear it, because sometimes they don't repeat. In part 1, they do. They're like, often they're like, oh, did you spell that as C-O? No, it was C-H-O. So they repeat in part 1. They don't repeat as much in part 2 or part 3. So that's one of the ways that's more difficult. So Chinese says it's Colchester, spelled C-O-L-C-H-E-S-T-E-R. Migur has spelled it according to the syllables, Colchester, and Baksadir also has it correct. Prab, you got to make that first C big, otherwise you're going to get it wrong, okay? So names are proper nouns. They're capitalized. They have to be written as such. So we got to be careful, okay? Colchester. Practice correct capitalization, students. So the question I often get is, can I write all capital letters? Yes, you can, okay? But you should learn when you should and when you should not capitalize in the English language. Why? Okay, why should you learn correct capitalization? So here's another interesting tip. Although it is okay to write all uppercase letters, I think uppercase is just one word. It's not even hyphenated. Uppercase letters in the or for the listening and reading sections. You should use proper upper and lower case letters. Why? Why is it important? Or I should say, why is it important to know capitalization? What do you think? Chani says it's impolite to use just lowercase. Chani, it's actually the opposite. Usually it's impolite to use uppercase. Like, I love getting emails when students are doing this, like, look at my writing and give me a score. They send me an email like that, and it's like, whoa, stop shouting, okay? All uppercase in English usually means that you're shouting. That you're shouting at the reader. So it's usually impolite to do all uppercase. Right? That's why we do it, because you want a lot of attention. You're like, give me attention, I'm yelling at you. It means you're yelling. It's kind of like using an exclamation mark. Okay? All right. That's right, Fuang. So why is it? Kushal says to understand writing. Yeah, Kushal, you're on the right track. So in the writing section, task 1 and 2, you have to, you must. You cannot write all uppercase. You can, but it will hurt your score. Okay, for multiple reasons. One is you'll need a lot more space. Capital letters are a lot bigger, right? It's slower. You'll be writing slower. Plus, they will take marks for using all uppercase and avoiding correct capitalization. Okay, so if you don't learn it for the reading and writing, or sorry, for the reading and the listening parts, you will pay for it when you get to the writing part. Okay. All right, so it's best to learn correct capitalization. Mansur, I think computer-based is better as long as you can touch type. Okay. All right, students, let's get cracking on these answers now. So the address came a little bit later. What was this man's address? Something Shaftesbury Lane. We need a number here. So address, we know he lives in Plymouth. They gave us that information. 23. Very good. Just a number here. Chayani, very good. Yeah. Sarah, that's right. If it's a name, if it's specific, unique, or if it starts the sentence, you should write a capital letter. Okay? If it's an acronym, you should use capital letters. If it's a very unique noun like God, for example, the God, then you write it with a capital G. Okay? All right, 23 Shaftesbury Lane. Good. Plymouth. Date of birth? DOB. Yeah, Angel says it's 11 December 1979. Yeah, exactly. And you can abbreviate. You can do the DEC. Instead of writing the full word, December, you can abbreviate it. Absolutely. Okay. Phone number. What was Mr. Walter's phone number? Students, make sure that you practice dictation of numbers and letters in English with understanding the British English. It's very important because I guarantee you that you will have number dictation on your IELTS exam. We have a listening audio on the website, again in your audio assets, that specifically focuses on numbers and days of the month and such. Okay. Phone number. Anybody catch the phone number? Yeah, you need to write 1979. Absolutely. If you don't write 1979, you'll get it wrong. Date of birth is month, day, year. You need the month, you need the date, you need the year. If you miss any of those, you will get it wrong. Okay? All right. What was Mr. Colchester's phone number? Anybody get that? 01752 01752 667 and 835. Sometimes people ask me, like, do I need to use spaces? No, you don't have to, but if you can, great. Okay. Phone numbers, yeah, maybe they'll only say it once, so careful. Okay, 01752667835. Be really good at dictating and understanding dictation of phone numbers, because when you go to an English-speaking country, I guarantee that you will be in a situation where you will have to give your phone number or listen to a phone number like this very, very soon after you arrive. Okay? All right. So if you missed it, practice it. National insurance number. What was that? That came at a different time. National insurance number. Anybody catch that? In Canada, we call that your social insurance number. Okay, Chayani says it's WC 2856 9833. Yeah, that looks good. Bogdan, Electro, Niladri, all agree. Okay, actually, Electro there, you say WUC. It's, yeah, so Mingur is WU. Students, this is called a W in English. There's no U that comes after, okay? It's not double U, it's W. In English, it's W. In French, it's W. So in French, they say it's like two V's. English speakers say, no, we disagree with the French. It's two U's. Sarah's going to have a good laugh at that. Right, because French say W and English say W, because it's like two U's, right? So don't write like this, okay? There's no U there, all right? All right. Yeah, French and the English, long history there. They like to quarrel about unnecessary concepts. It's a W. It's not. It's a W. All right. All right. Sarah says, yes, it's a double V, not a W. All right. All right, students, let's not fight over that one. So don't write a U when you hear W. Okay, don't write a U. Just write the VV. Okay. My personal opinion, I agree with the French. All right. So there you go. That's the answer for number 5. Then you had a little bit of a break. Domenico says, yes, we call it the same in Italian, sir. Yes, yes. Okay, then we had a little bit of a break, and this was a tricky one. Here, you really had to pay attention. Second debate. So this part here, this is the perfect example of if you're just listening for keywords like second debate, second debate, second debate, you will get into trouble because they don't actually say second debate. So does anybody know how we get, I remember this, so it was a tricky one. Does anybody know how we catch this one? So she says there are 3 debates. You have to participate in at least 2. So how do we catch the second debate? Because the speaker doesn't actually say the second debate. They do something else. Let me show you this. It's quite neat and interesting, and this is where you have to really pay attention to content rather than a specific word. Okay, let me see if I can find this for you. I think it's page 159. 59. Yes. So in our books, in our practice exams, we always have the transcripts as well, and it's going to be 181 for this one. So for those of you who have the premium course, you go to page 181, I think. Let me just find it here. No, that was, so it is going to be page 159-ish. Okay, let me see here. Just bear with me. So back of the book should contain your transcripts. Yeah, there it is. So it should contain your transcripts. Okay. The transcripts, basically, it's the scripted dialogue, okay, of what's going on. So when you're studying the listening section and partners, you can actually do this on the website, okay, students? So you can go on the website, you can use this student partner speaking, and another fun exercise you can do is find a speaking partner, choose one of these dialogues and go through it. So for example, Requea, you can be Walter, and then Monsieur can be Florence, and you can go through one being one and the other one being the other, and then actually practice it, and then do the listening, listen, and then answer. So there's a lot of fun exercises that you can do, especially with that premium course, okay? So you can be like, okay, Walter, I'm going for town councillor, I imagine, right? All right. And then they're talking. You see, like, you know, the birthday here, the 11th of December. My national insurance number is WC285, right? And then I live here. And then we go to questions 6 to 10. There are 15 candidates. And then here, look at this. It's a tricky one. It's interesting. This is where Florence says, yes, that's right. They are on the 14th and 28th of August, and the final one is held on the 4th of September. So it's from this sentence, the final one, the last one, is on the 4th of September. So I now can infer that the second debate is on the 28th of August. So the correct answer for number 6 is 28th of August, but they don't say second debate. Okay, see why it's so dangerous to just listen for words like second debate, because then you will be in the situation where it's like, and that's the end of part 1, and you're like, what? So careful. You got it? Chani says it's a tricky question. So they say 14th, 28th of August. Final one is 4th of September. Okay, so 28th of August. Okay, and then it says it begins at 6 o'clock in the evening. So there you go, 6 and 7. So you can always check the transcripts. Okay, all right. Okay, students, let's go back, place those answers in there, and then we'll continue on with some more answers and strategies here. All right, there's my little scroll box. All right, so let's go back to this. Go all the way to 76. I'm a little bit off. Just give me a second to get to the right page. Okay. So here, easy, sept, 28. That's all you need. Okay, sept, 28. September is unique in that we usually abbreviate it as SEPT. If you write SEP, it's okay. We do use that abbreviation as well, SEP. But more common or most common is SEPT for September. Okay. Time, be very careful here, is either 6 p.m. or you could do, for example, 18 o'clock if you're using the 24-hour clock. Okay. But if you just write 6, okay, that's going to be wrong because that is easy to assume that it's 6 in the morning, which is an awkward time to have a debate, first of all, and it's also wrong information. So if you're using a 12-hour clock, you need PM. If you're using a 24-hour clock, then you need 18.00. Okay? That clear? Thumbs up. Everybody good? If you write just 6, they'll mark it wrong, right? There's usually a space between the number and PM. All right. Shushan says it's 28th of August. Yes, you're right. Sorry, guys. August 28th. Thank you for the correction, everybody. Yeah, it's August 28th. A little bit. When you check your answers, that's the kind of mistake you should catch. Okay, checking your. I checked. That's why I caught it because I checked. I looked at the chat and I was like, "Well, yeah, that's 28th of August." So always keep an open mind. Okay. 28th of August. All right. Let's keep rolling. So now we're on to question 8. Question 8 says, what is the campaign spending limit? And here we have registration fees. So I'm careful not to confuse these two. Okay. Again, sometimes in the IELTS exam, you might get this one first and you might get this one second. Now, in this case, you don't, but it's possible. It's within the same question set. Okay. Just like in the beginning. Also, pay attention. You have the symbol for pounds. So don't write pounds, okay? If you write pounds here, guess what happens? You get it wrong because it's pounds. And they usually mark that wrong. Okay, so you just need a number here. It's all you need is a number. And that number is 2,000 pounds. Yes. It's the campaign spending limit. It's the budget. Okay, 2,000 pounds. That's all you need, and you're good. All right, and then the registration fee. How much is that? Number 9. Numbers should be pretty easy. So, how much does it cost to register? Vamshi Krishna, very good. 50 pounds. Yeah, 50 pounds it is. And then it says, choose 3 letters A to F. What are the 3 ways of paying the registration fee mentioned in the recording? Over the phone, check in post, cash. So I wrote this after. Okay, this is my writing. This was not here before. I took some notes. Taking notes for these multiple choice questions is a really good idea. When I was reviewing the questions in the review time, I did something though. Did anybody catch what I did? So what did I do? I did something kind of interesting when I was reviewing this question. What did I do? Anybody catch that? It was pretty obvious. Besides the notes. So I took notes while I was listening, but during the review time, I actually did something that was kind of interesting. Anybody know what that was? What I did is I crossed out a couple of these. So cash by post, I crossed that out, and check over the phone. Yeah, that's right, Shushan. I crossed out D and E. Now, I did that because sending cash by post in the mail is usually a really bad idea, so it's unlikely that a government office will ever suggest that. And, you know, especially now in the world with so many scam calls, if you hear some government office saying, yeah, just send me like $500 in cash and I will send you an IELTS certificate, you should be like, yeah, no. All right? That's a scam. Nobody's going to ask you, especially not a government office, to send them cash in post. That's just a bad idea. Okay? Because then the postman is going to be like, Christmas comes early this year. New pair of shoes for daddy. So yeah, don't send cash by post, okay? Be careful. Check over the phone. You can do e-banking now with checks, but check is when you have that check where it's like, you know, $50. You have your address, you have your signature, and then you send it. You can send a check by mail usually because checks are specific to a person, so you can't cash it. That's the power of a check, is you can mail it. But you're not gonna, you know, take your phone and jam the check in there. You can take a picture and send it over the internet these days with some banks, but you can't exactly just take your check and smash it into your smartphone, right? So that's why I crossed those out. It's a bit of deduction. It's probably like check over the phone and cash by post. It's not gonna happen, right? However, students, important point here. If you're doing the paper-based test, don't cross them out, okay? Because you never know. There might just be something weird going on, right? So they might say something like, oh, and you can now take a picture of your check with your phone and send it over the phone. So they might say something like that, something weird. If you cross it out, it means your eyeball's not paying attention to it anymore, okay? So your eye's not looking at it anymore. That's not a good idea. So what you want to do in the real test is think, okay, probably not D, probably not F, but I'll keep that in mind just in case. Okay, so don't actually, cross them out. Definitely don't scratch them out in the computer-based test on your screen. Okay, all right. So the correct answer is, after taking notes, and sensibly so, the answers were check by post, so you can send a check by mail. Okay, you can pay credit card in person, or you can pay credit card over the phone. That's a very common option as well for government offices. There you go. So it was B, C, and E. Okay, B, C, E. That's right, Shushan. B, C, E. So B, C, E. Those were the correct answers. Okay. All right, everybody. So there we go, BCE. And that was it for listening part 1. How many did you get correct? So what did you get from 10 here? What was your score? Let me know. I want to see how all of you are doing. Basically here you should be going for 9 or 10. Okay, it's part 1. It's the easiest. You should not be losing more than 1 or 2 marks here. So Domenico, 9 is quite good. Murad, 8 is quite good. Nat, 8 is good. Fuang, 8 is good. Don't freak out. 8 is still good. You want to get that 9, but 8 it's close. It's close. A little bit more study. So Asha, 7. Buxadir, 7. You want to make sure you know where you made those mistakes, because part 2, part 3, 4 are going to be a lot more difficult. Like, when students get into the real IELTS and they listen to part 1, they're like, oh, this is so easy, especially students who didn't do anything before the test, which is a really bad idea. I've met a couple people who didn't do any practice because they're like, oh, I've got good English. And then they literally told me it was the biggest shock of their lives when they got into the real test. So be careful about that. Part 2 is a lot more challenging than part 1. There's a huge jump in difficulty between part 1 and 2. Okay, let's listen to part 2. Okay, so here we go with part 2. We know it's going to be some kind of a company meeting discussion, something about sales performance. So let's do it. Let's listen. Everybody, again, just a reminder, put your answers into a separate document, separate piece of paper, not in the chat. Give everybody a chance to answer on their own. Don't confuse them. So we jump back to our website here for the audio. Again, for those of you who are in these classes regularly, spend a little money, help us help you, help yourself, and get the premium course so that you have all of the course materials, exam books, everything. And you can follow these classes, review them after class, watch the videos. It's just a lot better than jumping around on YouTube videos. Okay, so listening section 2 or part 2. Here we go, everybody. Listen carefully, answer questions.
Now turn to section 2. Take some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Listening section 2. You will hear a recording of 3 people discussing strategy for an upcoming meeting with investors. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully to the interview and answer questions 11 to 16.
Thank you both for coming in for this preparatory meeting. As you know, we have an extremely important meeting with our investors next week. While I'm more than confident in the work we have done over the past year, we must be prepared to justify our progress to our investors. After all, they are the ones who pay our salaries. First, I want to review the positive outcomes we've achieved over the past year. This will make up the bulk of our presentation. Amy, would you like to give us a rundown on this front?
Sure. We've achieved many positive outcomes over the past year, and furthermore, we've achieved more in the past 4 months than in the previous 8 months. So we're certainly showing significant progress. First, and most important, sales of our app are up 50% from last year, totaling 586,000 units in the past 12 months, up from 390,000 units in the previous year. This is great progress. Second, we're achieving a higher purchase rate. While our sales are up 50%, the number of total downloads has remained relatively constant. This means our conversion rate has increased 50% as well. This clearly demonstrates that our efforts in this area have been fruitful. By targeting the conversion rate instead of the raw download rate, we have raised our standing and search result priority within the application stores. This will eventually lead to a higher download rate and even more sales. The upward trajectory here is very clear. We have also decreased the complaint rate from 2.5% to 1.5%. While our goal is to get this rate as close to zero as possible, this decrease represents a positive outcome and shows that our efforts to increase customer satisfaction have been successful.
Yes, but if I may interrupt, I actually have to disagree on one point. I don't believe it should be a goal to get the complaints rate down to zero. While we certainly don't want a high complaint rate, the resources spent on getting the complaint rate down are better spent on increasing downloads and increasing the conversion rate. I think this is an important point to be made to the investors. While we certainly value the quality of our product, we are much more focused on maximising the value of the investor's investment. I think such a tack will go over well with the investors.
You now have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen to the rest of the interview and answer questions 17 to 20.
That's a great point. We really want to emphasize that we are doing everything we can to optimize and maximize the money and resources we've been supplied with. Speaking of which, are we all agreed that we will be asking for 20% increase in operating budget?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. And how are we going to justify such an increase?
Well, certainly by pointing to the statistical outcomes you previously referenced, but also by our need to expand. We need to increase our catalogue of apps, and to do this, we will need to hire at least 2 additional developers. In addition to this, I think we are now at the point in our business where hiring a market analyst would be justified. Such a person could be charged with finding niches to exploit within the market. Right now, our operations in this regard are rudimentary at best, and an expert in the field could help increase our sales volume significantly. Such an expert's salary might take up 5% of our operating budget, but could lead to a 10% increase in sales or more. The 5% difference would result in a net income increase of almost £100,000.
I agree. Hiring a market analyst is long overdue. One more justification for a budget increase is an across-the-board pay rise, if only at the rate of inflation. 2%, say. This would go a long way to increasing worker morale and output quality. In addition to this...
That is the end of section 2. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
Awesome. And you want to check those answers just to make sure that you didn't make any silly spelling mistakes or miss some words or questions. There's no negative marks for answering wrong or blanks, right? So you want to answer all the questions. Let me just stop the audio there. Again, students, this audio, it's in your premium IELTS account, which you can access and get when you click that big red button right there above my head at aehelp.com to join that premium package. So definitely get it. It's all the materials that we use for these live classes, okay? All right, let's go through the answers together now. So you notice how I was kind of guiding you through what you should be paying attention to. And here I was really focusing on the concept of salaries of workers, right? Who pays the salaries? The kind of the head manager or CEO, whoever that is, gives us this answer. Anybody know what it is? Oh, Manas, I'm very happy to see that you got 8. You were in the Discord class. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. While I'm waiting for the answers here, Fong and Alexander say the investors. Yes. Not investor, investors. There has to be an S there. Okay? Absolutely. It's the investors. Very good. Okay. And then we had this table here. So it was comparing the performance of the company from the current year to the previous year. Now, you probably realize they're not saying previous year. What are they using instead of previous year? I wonder if anyone's like, oh, okay, that's what they're using. So what was the paraphrase? It was simple, it was elegant, but it was clear. What did they say instead of previous year? And this is where vocabulary becomes kind of important. Last year, they said last year, and they also said something else a couple of times. This, not last year, before they started saying last year, they said this past year. Past year was what they referenced instead of last year. In the past year, this past year, in the last quarter, yeah, it was past year rather than last year. Okay, more so. Always check in the transcripts when you miss it. Okay, past year. All right, sales. It was a big number. Anybody catch that number? So change from previous year was 50%. They said in the previous year was 300 and something thousand. And then this current year, it was a big number. Anybody catch what that was? So again, remember, they're paraphrasing. It's 5,893. Nope. It was much more. It's a popular app. Think popular here. Yeah, Alexander, was 586,000. 586,000. Downloads. You could do 000. I find the K is faster, so I would just do the K. 586,000, I believe, was the right number. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, yeah, 586,000. Good. Units. Yes. Downloads not given. Constant conversion rates not given. From the previous year, it was up by. This should be fairly easy. Now, they give you the percent symbol here, so you only need the number. Okay? You only need the number. The number is 50. Okay? All you need is the number. They give you percent. Be very careful with that. 50%. Complaint rate. Complaint rate is 1.5%, and it was down by how much? So people complaining about the app. Fong says 2.5, so that says 2.5. Andrew very cleverly and Raquea very cleverly give me the correct answer. The correct answer is 1. Why? Why is Andrew and Raquea correct, and Marty and Asha? Andrew says, well, let me show you a little math here. 2.5 minus 1.5 equals 1. Yes. IELTS is tricky. It's not tricky because they want to trick you. It's tricky because they need you to think. They don't just need you to hear English and show English. They need you to think English. Okay? And they're testing, especially for Band 8, Band 9, they're testing your English thinking, not just your English. IELTS is not an ESL exam. It's an English proficiency exam. Very important difference there. Okay? English proficiency exam basically means how well do you think in English, all right? It's an important note I'm going to give you here because I want you to think about that as you're studying for IELTS, okay? IELTS is not an ESL exam. Native speakers take it too. That surprises some people when I say that. They're like, really? Yeah. If somebody didn't pass high school English and they want to do university, even if they're a native speaker, they have to take the exam. There's a guy that I played tennis with from Australia who came to Canada. He was born in Australia, his native English speaker, and he had to take the IELTS exam for immigration because he didn't have grade 12 English. Okay, so IELTS is not an ESL exam. It is a English proficiency exam. It tests your thinking in English. Okay, so keep that in mind. So here, you had to catch that. There's a lot of bad information about IELTS out there. That's why I'm kind of going into details here. So here it was 2.5 minus 1.5, as Andrew very cleverly said, equals 1. And the trick here, right, is change from previous year. So the change from previous year is down by 1%. Okay? All right. Careful. It's a tricky one. Be really cautious of this math type question. It usually appears in one of the listening parts, usually in part 2 or part 3. So pay careful attention. It's called an inference type question. You have to inference it from the information. Okay, number 15, what points do the investors disagree on? It's something about the complaint rate. Okay, again, writing notes for multiple choice, getting the complaint rate down. Is there a match? Let's see. Ways to increase conversion rate, how to convince investors to increase funding, getting the complaint rate as low as possible. See, there it is. Right? That matches my own answer. That's what I want to do for multiple choice. Think about my own answer and then find one that matches. If that's not happening, you have to start using logic and thinking about what you heard. Okay? All right, good. All right, number 16. What is of primary importance according to the employees? All right. Maximizing the value of the investor's investment. Yes. Again, that would have been my notes. So whoever gave A, Asha, Akil, Silviana, good. You got it. A it is. Yes. He says we have to focus on maximizing the investor's investment. Of course, return on investment, ROI. It's all about that ROI, that magical acronym, ROI, return on investment. If I spend 2, I want 4. It's everybody's goal. If I give you a chocolate bar, I want a chocolate cheesecake. Return on investment. All right. So yes, and then we had the filling in the paragraph. You will have one of these questions. Okay, so be really careful. Pay attention to the words that come before the space and the ones that come after. Especially look for numbers like 20% because it's very likely that you will hear that number. So you will hear them say 20%. And then you can figure it out. Logic is helpful here too. Number 17. What do you think it is? So the employees are requesting a 20%. Yeah, Akil, that's right. In the Cyrillic name, I can't read it. Cyrillic something 333. I should really get my dad to teach me Cyrillic because he speaks Russian and Ukrainian fluently, being born in the Ukraine. But anyway, yeah, increase. Okay, so increase. Good. The employees, read the sentence, make sure it makes sense. The employees are requesting a 20% increase in funding. Operating budget, Silviana, no, because it's not a 20% operating budget, right, Silviana? So 20% operating budget would not make sense. Increase makes sense, right? Okay. This will allow the company to hire 2 additional. So, okay, hire, pay attention to verbs. 2 additional who will. Okay, so here it has to be some kind of a person or people. Fuang and so that's say developers, yes. And it's S because there's 2. So 2 developers. Very good. Developers. Whoa. It's a small d. My processor's having an issue here. All right, and so developers, yes, and who will allow the company to broaden their catalog of apps. They would also like to hire, now this was a bit of a tricky one because it's a more unique job. Not market assistant, but a market analyst. Yeah, somebody who analyzes the market and figures out what people need, what people want, what they will pay for. It's a market analyst. Very good. For those of you that got it, it was a tricky one. Who would be in charge of finding new areas for development. Finally, the team wants a pay raise pegged to the rate of, so matching the rate of, the last one, number 20. Alexander, Chayani, Andrew, correct answer. Fuang, almost, just no S. It's not a plural. Rate of inflation. It's not 2%. Because you don't really peg something to a specific number. So if the inflation is 3%, then 3%. She just gives the 2% as an example. She says, say 2. But it's not the exact amount. So she's kind of just suggesting whatever the inflation rate is. Okay. We don't use inflation, Andrew, in plural because we use it as an adjective instead. Then we say inflation rates. So inflation is not really counted. If you visualize it, you can't count it because when you inflate a balloon, okay, so inflate means to blow up. Right? So when you have a little balloon and you make it into a big balloon, that's a terrible looking balloon, but anyway, you inflate the balloon. Right? Inflate the balloon. And you can't really measure inflating. It's kind of like water, right? It's just an evolving sum. So you can measure the rate of inflation. So inflation rates rather than inflations, right? Makes sense, I think. Okay. All right. So there you have it. Count it up, ladies and gentlemen. What did you get from 20? Now, here's a hint. You should be aiming for 16 or more for a band 8 or 9 especially, but even a band 7. You should be aiming for at least a 16. Domenico says 17. That's pretty good, Domenico. Raquea says 18. That's solid. Fuang says I got 6 out of 10 that time. So, Fuang, it's 14 out of 20, right? Okay. Andrew says, I got 10 out of 10 there. I don't know why, but second part is easier. Andrew, that means that it takes a minute for your brain to kind of click into English. So I definitely recommend doing some listening to podcasts or even doing a part 1 practice listening before your real test. So let's say that you're getting ready for your real test, everybody. And based on what Andrew just said, yeah, go to our website, aehelp.com. Hopefully you have that premium account. It might just save you a band score here. Go to your audio CDs, and any one of the CDs, so CD 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, the first audio is going to be listening section 1. So just listen to section 1, and that will help your brain kind of get in tune with your exam. You walk in, and bada bing, bada bang, bada boom. Andrew, you might just do great in part 1 the first time, right? Because you're all warmed up. Okay. All right, students, you've done a fantastic job. Next week, same time, same day, we're going to have listening parts 3 and 4 of this exam. But don't forget, we've got other live IELTS classes before then. So make sure to join our premium IELTS package by clicking on that big red button that's just above my head there. It's a one-time payment, lifetime access. For general IELTS students, do it on gieltshelp.com. It's this website here. We separate the two. It just makes sense to not have the same website for academic and general. And I will be back tomorrow with speaking part 2, speaking part 3 practice. We can actually talk to our students through our websites in these live classes. So you're going to hear real examples of IELTS speaking interviews tomorrow in speaking part 2, speaking part 3. Hopefully I'll see you all there. Thank you, subscribers. Thank you, members. This was a subscribers chat class, so members and subscribers were in the class. Thank you, Carolina. Thank you, Sarah, for being with me throughout both classes. You're both amazing. And I hope all of you just have an awesome start to the weekend or continuation to the weekend. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. ahelp.com, gieltshelp.com. I'm Adrian. I'm signing out from beautiful Victoria here in Western Canada. Bye, everybody.